It's Chris. Best and most mentionable of this last month, August. What do you need to know? Things I played, things that I was super interested by, things that caught my eye, and a couple quick reactions and pluses and minuses to go along with it. Because, you know, that's also what we need to talk about, because not everything is always highs. There are also some lows and some unexpected things that don't always go the way you're planning. So let's just talk about things, right? 30 different games I played in August. 30 different games. Not nearly the 31 in July, but 30 different games. And so there were some high highs, there were some, you know, unexpected issues, and there were some just absolutely fantastic gameplay as well. So my number one game of the month, you know, this is going to surprise you guys. I typically don't do this, but this is actually skyrocketing up my all-time list right now. Side note, I'm making a top 100 list. Expect that in the future at some point. I don't know. I still have even done look backs from August. Haven't posted those yet. So we're way behind on content. But what do we got going on? Well, Castles of Burgundy, the special edition. I'm super impressed by that game. And, you know, truth be told, now that I just went and got it and put it in front of myself, you know, I'm not going to recommend everyone to buy this game. Nah, it's a lot of money. Go buy the 20th anniversary edition to find if you like it, right? You can find that for like 20 bucks in the secondary market, or the base game of the original for even less. But this is an absolutely tremendous game. I'm making a video in the future that's talking about the games I think everyone should own, parentheses, maybe just play at least once, but games that everybody should play. Everybody has played to find out whether or not you like them, because they are that good across genre by mechanism, right? This is one of those games, period. If you haven't played this style of game, if you have any interest in Euro mechanisms, this is in there with El Grande and Hansa as classic games that easily stand the test of time, that surpass the majority, if not almost everything that's come since then with similar mechanics. And it's outstanding to me that it can do that. And it was one of those games that I just looked at for the longest time and said, but I had Awakened Realms willing to send me a copy of it, and I said, yeah, I'll try it. Heck yeah. Right? Like I just talked about on the roundup from this past week, Hoplomachus, right? Like Hoplomachus is a game that I've potentially dabbled in looking at, you know, as a highly tactical person with an asymmetric asymmetry love, but never really been able to pull the trigger. But getting a copy otherwise, you know, totally dive in. And that's what this is for me. And that's why this game is probably going to be a top 10 to 15 game for me all time. Like, I love it that much already just in the short time I've had it. I kid you not. So go find yourself a copy of this and try it out. It's not going to be for everybody, but there's a reason it's that well thought of. Second up, I got to find some place to put this real quick. Second up, you know, Mythic Mischief. I like this game. I love this game. You know me, I talk about this all the time, right? I talk about my love for abstracts. This is no different, right? This is a great abstract game. It's got a theme. It's, you know, more expensive because they've gone with miniatures via the classic abstract route, which is, you know, the bare minimum of pieces and, you know, components. But it works. It really stands up. I like the asymmetric factions. The biggest downside is, you know, with something like this that has the asymmetry, right? You're going to find classes or factions that just don't suit your personal play style. And so the biggest downside, you know, if you buy this edition, right, and it has 4 different games in it of factions, you're going to find 1 or 2 that just don't fit you as well. But you may find 1 or 2 that do. And the tricky part is, well, as long as your gaming partner, like my wife, doesn't like the exact same 2 and you always fight over the same 2, like if they like the ones that you don't, well, perfect. That's sort of the, you know, problem with some of the 7 in the first one, right? Like if you end up with more that you don't like than you do like, but the manipulation of your characters, the game board itself, as well as the pieces on the game board, is just very clever, and it works. And the overhead isn't adding anything new with this one. It's just adding more breadth. Doesn't add, you know, 4 pages of rules and here's another layer of modes and here's another layer of, I mean, the best thing that also that has gone with this game is the Blitz mode, where you can make people play in a certain amount of time. Because, you know, when I look at a game on my shelf like Yinch, if you're familiar with the GIP series at all, the biggest problem with that, or even Hive, for example, is that you have, if anybody with halfway AP, the turns are going to be long and laborious. And the great thing about a lot of these abstract games is that they're short time play in the first place, if you don't end up with the AP. And so if you add a Blitz mode to force people, and again, that's not just for this, right? You could add Blitz mode to any of these games and it would be great. And I would love it. I'd love this game. This game is a great game. Now I just need to get my hands on the wooden board that they're offering for the campaign, and I'll be all set, because that's, you know, one of the few deluxifications, game mats or boards that are upgraded nowadays that I actually feel like are worthwhile. So that was the second great game this month. Again, this was a tough month because I played a lot of good things as a whole. 3 though, we're gonna go over here. I'll have a review out either shortly before this or shortly after this. Cylinder-based games are usually crappy. I mean, that's what everyone says, right? This is a horrible design structure. There's absolutely no functional utility to this. Pouring the little pieces out of this onto the cloth mat is it's completely superfluous. It completely is unnecessary, if you will. My mother was an English teacher, so I know a lot of weird adjectives and adverbs, right? So why is Lacuna such a good game? Again, it's an abstract. It's an I cut you choose style mechanism where you just dump a bunch of these pieces out on the board and you put your piece, and whatever it's closest to you grab, and then when all of them are out, whatever it's closest to it grabs the rest of. And it just forkin' works. It's an amazing game. I'll argue that for the price point and for the ease of accessibility that I can play this with my 7 and my 9-year-old, it beats out Mythic Mischief, because I can't play that with them and won't be able to play that with them for full understanding anytime soon. But it's that good, and it's going to cost you $35 right now on Amazon or CMYK's website. And so I highly, highly, highly endorse this one as someone who literally just bought off of Amazon, you know, last month. So highly, highly enjoyable from that side of things. Number four is a little bit trickier because there were a lot of other very interesting games. Number 4 could have been another abstract. I played a couple great indie games this month. I'll have another video coming out with 3 great indie games all smashed into 10 minutes. Let me tell you how fast I talked during that video, folks. But then the other thing we'll talk about right now is the other one that stood out for me was Expeditions. I ended up trading for a copy of STONEMAIER's Expeditions. Just the normal miniatures, not the metal ones. I'm not fancy and posh and, you know, expensive taste faring. So both better and worse than I expected, and that's why we're talking about it. You know, as not a fan of Scythe, as a person who owns no other STONEMAIER games at this point in my collection, I said I want to give this a shout. I want to give this a look-see. As an engine building, asymmetric, slightly stomp around and explore game, it worked. It worked. And it's going to get a lot of the criticisms that something like Arc Nova is getting, because it has this huge deck of cards that there's absolutely very little mitigation of. And if you just pull the right stuff at the right time versus the wrong stuff at the wrong time, your, you know, mileage is going to vary. And that's okay. But also the setup in terms of this grid of this hex-based system that you're doing, right? There's always the set at the top, and there's always a set in the middle, and there's always the same setup at the bottom. And I wish there was just some more modularity there. It's got it in spades in the cards and how you can combine the cards and the random Feldian point scoring salad that goes along with that sometimes. But the game itself, it was a little bit longer than it could have been too. Take 20 or 30 minutes off this game. Fantastic. Would be one of the best of the year. Now, I'm not convinced it won't be on my top 10 list at this point, but there have been a lot of good games that I've played that have surprised me. There's another one in the queue here that I haven't talked about yet from a crowdfunding campaign that is being delivered as we currently speak, that's also nature-based, that I've been very impressed by as a light filler game as well that was much exceeding my expectations via the name of Leaf. Other than that, we're really talking about splitting hairs because, you know, I played Peacemakers, Horrors of War, the asymmetric cooperative game over on Gamefrown from Lasco. And then we also, Snowdale Design. Then we also had the more recent Flock Together. And then I also have Defenders of the Wild that was played last month as well, the upcoming one from the makers of Block by Block. And so a lot of cooperative games, and probably of those 3, my favorite was probably Defenders of the Wild, because it's just that much more difficult, and it reminds me more of Spirit Island than the other ones. Again, not that the other ones were bad, and again, it's splitting hairs, right? It's like 1A, 2A, and 2B, essentially, in terms of how good they were. And so this is an absolutely fantastic time if you like cooperative things. But the last one on this list, I think we're actually going to talk about, is Terraforming Mars, the dice game. I don't actually have it out here. It's still sitting on the kitchen table. If you want Terraforming Mars that's easier and more accessible and quicker, it's your go-to. People aren't going to like it because it's not as deep. People aren't going to like it because it's not as strategic. But you know what? I played it and it's fast. It's incredibly quick turn-based die rolling, where the die rolling is actually just kind of a one and done. And then you have the ability to mitigate it afterwards on future turns, but you're not just sitting there rolling and rolling and rolling, which is, you know, surprisingly great, actually. And yeah, it takes some of the, you know, basic parameters of terraforming with the oxygen and the oceans and the temperature, and so that doesn't change significantly. But the thing I'll say that kind of makes it also unique in that sense is, unlike some of the other reiterations of games that we've seen, whether it's a Great Western Trail or a Nemesis or Nemesis Lockdown, right, that sort of thing, I didn't feel like, as a person who owns our Ares Expedition with all of the expansions, that this was occupying necessarily the same space as it, and I felt like the need to say, I need this one, or this one replaces this one, which is kind of nice. The dynamics, although the setup, the thematic incorporation, and the overall approach is similar, how you're taking that approach is drastically different, and so I feel comfortable having all of those in my collection at this point. So that's why we're talking about that one as well. My best crowdfunding campaigns of the month. Well, you heard me talk about it. I did a video on it. Exceed, Guilty Gear, just doing something cool. I love Exceed. I love Exceed. I love Exceed. There's no qualms or questions about it from that standpoint. What you see is what you get. And so you see me hype a video talking about it individually. I'll talk to you about it in this video and tell you the same thing, folks. It's a great asymmetric, character-based, head-to-head dueler. One of, if not the best. Do you like this iteration? Do you like this mechanic? Yeah, you go for it then. Yeah, some of the piecemealing wasn't necessarily there. If you want the acrylic standees, you know, it's very expensive, but you don't need it either. And so picking it up from them just on the crowdfunding campaign, just with the basic, or waiting to see if you can get it slightly discounted at retail, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's an absolutely great game. I cannot say enough good things about it from that aspect of things. Second one of the month is also going to be a slight departure. It's going to be Dungeon Kart. Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for Mario Kart, if you will. I think Mario Kart done really well is going to be a classic hit, whatever spin you take on it, whether it's dinos riding dodos or Dungeon Kart with dungeon boss, dungeon monster sort of incorporated in with a, you know, flair for take that. It's just solid. Their previous game, Castles by the Sea, sitting behind me, again, is a very, very solid game. And if you're going to put out anything in those lines of things, I have to think that this is going to be nothing short of very much the same. And again, you know, talking about it earlier, Peacemaker's Horrors of War, Semi Lasco, Snowdale Design. If you're looking for something completely different in terms of a cooperative game, yeah, people are saying there's only 6 scenarios. I guarantee 6 scenarios is going to be more than enough for you. You don't need 10 or 12 scenarios. You're not going to play half of them anyway before you move on to the next hotness. So all the people that use that as their main complaint about not backing a game like this, shame on you. Throw that out the window. You should be embarrassed by that. And so you should check this one out too. Because, I mean, again, it's doing a classic thing in a completely different other way. And it just needs to be talked about. And that's what a lot of Snowdale Design does. And I give them kudos because they could stay safe and tried and true with the pandemic-esque formula. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, because, you know, Flock Together, which I just talked about, is taking a spin on it and making it slightly their own, which is still working fantastically. But it's also needing to be said, if you're going to take a risk, you know, high risk, also higher praise reward to go along with that. So I have to do it from that aspect of things. Honorable mention here actually going to be for Spectral from Bitewing Games. This is going to be sort of an interesting test. I don't know how I feel about it. I was hyped a little bit more so going into the campaign. It didn't quite meet what I was thinking it was going to be, but I think it could still be a very fun game. I think it's just a little bit heavier as well, with a little bit of AP, sort of like Trailblazers in the first place. Bitewing has definitely got a type in that sense, right? Games that appear much more simple and straightforward, but are actually much more complex in terms of how much thinking, especially with this being more of a deduction game, doing something with a different spin on it as well. So very pleased to see that did well, or is doing well as it winds up towards the end of crowdfunding in addition. So those are my best of August right now. Fight me. Tell me I'm wrong. There you go. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, have a great freaking day. What'd you play that was good this month? I got lots more to come. Peace out. Subscribe if you'd like, but it'd be super awesome if you could. There's an outside chance if we get something viral and something goes big, we could hit 10K by the end of the year. It won't happen, but you know, dreamers can dream, right? Yeah. LA Night. Peace out. See you later, baby.